that. Go ahead.
All right, we're live. Wallace, it's
Wallace,
phenomenal
you're
to see you greet
so
us.
well. Yeah,
That is excellent and amazing at the same time. So right now, So all four of us are here for the podcast. Caleb's gonna jump in later, but I'm Vajasha Raptor. That's Underscory, Grand Marshal below me, and Calebite is the face that is just covering up the square. He won't be talking yet. You'll know when he comes in because you'll hear his voice.
God, that's right. His weird mouth on his image. I forgot he added that in. It still scares me sometimes.
His weird mouth.
I'm excited, guys.
Yeah. So, for those of you who have been following us for a long time, you probably recognize Corey's voice from a plethora of Zelda videos.
Hello.
And
that's literally the guy.
And from a lot of the previous podcasts before we started streaming them on YouTube, and then have started getting awesome, amazing audience interaction, which I feel like really helps. It's just really neat to hear perspectives live and then be able to comment on them. Because many a time we have forgotten one or two games and then been like, oh, it would have been great if we mentioned that, and then just kind of brush off and never bring it up again. He's Lord Voldemort.
He does look like Lord Voldemort.
Because he doesn't have a nose. That's funny. He's,
my God! Yeah.
Don't tell him that. If you can, you need to hide that, or else he's gonna make me do another face thing for him, and that took like a long
that's
time.
true.
Howdy, Panda. I will state for the record, though, if I talk to Caleb at any point during this recording, I will ask. So, you who must not be named, what do you think?
I can't imagine he'll get it right off the bat.
Nope. Of course not.
So getting right into today's topic, because as we know, we have a hard 8 o'clock stop because that's when The Bachelor starts.
We all need to watch The Bachelor.
It is the one and only gaming podcast that should be watched pre-Bachelor. It is our trademark.
If you're into that thing, I guess.
If you're into that thing. So today we're actually going to be talking about minigames in regular games and whether or not minigames hurt the regular game or if they're just a blatant time waste added into a game in order to stretch out gameplay.
If they're actually really fun.
Right, if they're actually...
Option C.
We definitely... Well, so some minigames are insanely fun. And so I guess the best place to start with is minigames as a whole and whether or not we think that they are a hindrance to games or do they actually help games? And then we can get more specifically into games that did it really well versus games that did not do it very well.
Yeah, makes sense.
So this kind of came up. I was browsing the internet and someone was complaining about a lockpicking mechanic in Skyrim, and that is a minigame. And so I was like, what about minigames as whole? And then it's like, I guess we need to start by defining what we think a minigame is, because if you, I feel like, delve too far into it, literally every aspect of a video game is a
quick time event a minigame?
Right.
Because I never thought of lockpicking as an actual minigame.
No, when you said that, I didn't think of that either.
Mechanic.
Yeah.
Right. And so that also brings up like a couple other things. So it's like if we go too far into it, is sailing in Wind Waker a minigame, and the actual quest is throwing hook shots? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like how into it do you get?
Like are those archery training mini games?
Right.
Like, who knows?
The archery, I guess, maybe.
And also
like some games, like you like get a bow and they're like, oh, go train at the training center. But then if you get a certain score, you get rewarded with something, which I would consider a mini game.
Yeah,
right.
if it's an actual game that you can do on its own within the game that actually like, hey, get a score and something like that. Sure, like that could totally count. But if it's using the mechanics.
But technically in Skyrim, you don't necessarily need to lockpick anything. You know what I mean? You could just avoid doors altogether. So, I mean, and then also in BioShock, the hacking, we would consider that a mini game, even though it's Pipe Mania.
Pipe Dream. What are you talking about?
Pipe Mania.
No, it's a Pipe Dream is a saying. The game is Pipe Mania.
I thought it was always just called Pipe Dream.
It could be called Pipe
Dream.
I swear it used to be called Pipe Dream way back in the day.
Maybe
I'm talking about
before sayings were a thing.
It was a pipe dream then.
Sorry, my pipe dream is that the game was called Pipe Dream.
Well done. Okay. So I still wouldn't think that would be considered a mini game.
The hacking or
the lockpicking? For Skyrim lockpicking, I mean,
I feel like if you get rewarded at all in any way, that's like a mini game because it's you do something other than the normal game and you're rewarded with something. Like that would be my definition of mini game.
Right.
But I mean, what about like in combat in like an RPG and you kill a guy and then you loot him? Is that technically a mini game then?
I guess it depends on the game. I mean, if the game is a first-person shooter, then yes. But then is menuing a mini game? You know what I mean? It's just like so
right.
That's why I feel like we need to like kind of define what we decide is a mini game and then kind of go from there. Because if you get, I feel like too granular, literally everything can be a mini game, and that's how I think. Oh yeah, so actually Wallace just said, oh god, not only in Skyrim, also in Fallout or hacking in Fallout. It ruined so much for me in Fallout. In the beginning it was funny, but later every second corner is some to hack or lockpick or something. And so, and that's also like another thing. I mean, I guess Skyrim and Fallout are very specific in that, like, especially with lockpicking, it's more, you can build up stats in lockpicking if you like to lockpick. But then it's like, the cooking is a mini game in itself. But there are...
So if you're lockpicking in Skyrim, can you be hit by enemies like in the world?
I think it freezes the game.
Okay, because I feel like anything that freezes the game should be a mini game, but like menuing or something like that where like enemies could continue to attack you, I would say isn't a mini game. Like if something takes you directly out of the game into something that's completely different, like that's a mini game to me.
I like that. That makes sense. I think that is a solid definition. I think that
which is fascinating because I want to bring this up right now. Kingdom Come Deliverance, which just recently came out this past week, which is kind of like, if you can call it like a Skyrim type RPG, but it's realistic medieval set in the 1400s Bohemia. They have lockpicking in that game. However, unlike Skyrim, which puts you in a paused game state in a different menu, it literally gives you the UI of the lockpicking, but it's still real time, and like people can hear you lockpicking, especially if you screw up and stuff like that. So it's like if you want to sneak in that game, you have to be really good at it, which I find fascinating because I don't know of any game that does that. So
but
would that technically be a mini game then? Because it's still real time, it's not paused or anything like that.
I guess it harkens back to, I guess, older games where if you hit a certain like quote unquote thief level, you can just insta lockpick things. Whereas if you were below that level, you just couldn't enter it. And so I would definitely say that like adding this lockpick thing is part of a mini game. Sorry, I got distracted because guess who's here? Wow.
Oh my God.
Caleb's back. So, Caleb, we're just defining what a mini game is, because if we get too granular, literally every part of a game is a mini game. So, Corey, I think, said it best, and the definition we're probably going to go with is a part or something in a game that literally pauses the rest of the game world or takes you out of the game to complete a task that you may or may not get rewarded for.
Yeah, or changes the mechanics, right? Like, it's not just going and doing a quest thing. It's like you're doing a whole different set of actions that you don't do in the normal game. Like,
I mean,
the snowboarding game in Final Fantasy VII.
Yes, for sure. And or like, definitely. So I think as a whole, we're going to talk about whether or not it's better or worse for games to have mini games in them, and then we'll dive into what we think had good mini games and what had bad mini games in it.
That's good. Sounds good to me. I just finished up Cooking, which is the mini game of life.
And we can't forget Cooking Mama, which is a game full of mini games.
Yep.
So I guess on a whole, with that definition of mini games, are they necessary for the story most of the time? And I guess that's another way to define it. If it's not necessary for the story of the game, then I guess it could be considered a mini game of some sort, I guess. But then does that make side quests mini game if they're not forced?
See, I think the biggest thing is, are you looking for like an immersion experience? Because a mini game is going to break that immersion experience, because like normally there's this random timer and like you're not part of the game or whatever it is. If you want like a full immersive experience, mini games sort of suck because they're like, oh, this is a video game inside of a video game, mini game type thing. Whereas like in Zelda, there's like a shield surfing mini game or like a bow deer hunting game. And I personally like those because it's something extra in the game to do that's self-contained, and like you can choose not to do it, or you could choose to do it. You could do it over and over and over. I like the option of extra content and choosing how to play. But for like any open world, like I don't know, MMO or something like that, if it's like a completely separate mini game that takes you out of the world, that's not something I would want to do.
I guess I want to say that I think repeatability should also be included in the minigame definition.
Oh, that's true. Like one cutscene or like one QuickTime event shouldn't be a minigame because like you can't go back to that cutscene and do the QuickTime event.
I think that would also, so it's like you said, like, I mean, I was thinking of fishing and Ocarina of Time. There is a repeatability to it, and like the deer hunting game, there is a repeatability to it. So they both don't necessarily take you out of the story, but I know what you mean. Like in the racing game, that whichever one had like literally geometry wars in it, it's like that has nothing to do with racing at all.
Right.
But
see, I like mini games that, and I don't necessarily think that mini games inherently break the immersion. Depends on how they're implemented in the game, really. Because, like, for example, I've been playing Prey, and Bioshock, the original, also did something similar where you have another ability or another set of skills like hacking, and the only way for you to complete hacking something is to do a little mini game that has you solving the puzzle or doing whatever to complete that action. And that actually doesn't break the immersion for me. It makes it more immersive because you can't articulate like learning a new skill or doing some other kind of thing in a video game because all you have are the game itself. You don't actually get to develop any tactile skills. So when you have something like hacking and it turns it into, all right, well, you have to solve this puzzle quickly, under time constraints or whatever, then that kind of conveys that skill for me. And I like that. I don't particularly love the hacking mini game itself in Prey, but I like the concept, and I liked the pipes one from Bioshock 1.
we actually brought that up pretty quickly. Yeah.
The pipe dream.
Pipe mania dream.
Pipe one. I liked that in Bioshock 1. The one in Prey is not as fun, but it still serves the same purpose, and I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I think so here's something. I like mini games if they are optional. I sort of dislike mini games if they're required. Like this lock picking and pipe dream and all that kind of stuff. Like it's fun the first 7 times, and then after that, like I am not into it at all.
Yeah, I guess but it's not supposed to be. I'd rather that than maybe if you get to a certain level, like a certain level of the skill, then it could just be all right. I press the button and it's done because you've shown proficiency in it enough or like whatever, and it's lost its appeal. I could see that being a nice middle ground to it. But in Prey, the hacking doesn't happen often enough that it really starts to drag at me. What I don't like is and I'm going to call it a mini game. It might be stretching the definition a little bit too much, but what I don't like is in for example the Batman Arkham games where you don't just have to press a button to open a grate. You have to mash it. So it's like
single time.
Every single time I want to get into a vent, I have to push the button to interact with it and then push. So Batman can slowly kick it open with his foot and then slide it over the side. I'm like, God damn it, just push the button and go in the gate. Like, I don't care.
Question though, does that considered a mini game or is that a QuickTime event?
I would say it's an annoyance.
But yeah, it's an annoyance.
Yeah,
and that's why
I would agree.
It's like trying to open up chests in the original God of War. You had to mash that button.
Well, that was actually,
and you had to open up doors, mash that button.
Well, at least he was like actually lifting up something heavy because there were doors that he would just kick open. But if it was like a heavy one that you had to like split, that's one thing. But for like Arkham City, for the speed run, what they do is they map A to the scroll wheel so they can just fly through that. You know what I mean? It doesn't add anything. It just kind of slows you down. And I can understand like way back when it's like you had to do that to buy time to load the game, which is like what elevators did.
Right.
But no, I definitely see what you're saying. Wallace made a good point. He's like, you've got games that have like mini games that are important in some point, and other games that have real, actual, totally different games that are mini. And then he brought up Wolfenstein, how they had the old school Duke Nukem mini game, but whereas like lockpicking is like a mini game. So there are a couple.
like an actual game within a game, not
Right.
even just.
Oh yeah, so there could be like mini mechanics and mini games, if you will.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It definitely
Hmm.
that inception hole goes pretty deep when it comes to like mini games.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
very
I
much so.
I loved the. I really like it when games do that true to form like minigame thing that's a hidden secret or something like in not the New Order, but in the new Wolfenstein, or maybe it was the New Order, not the whatever the second one was, the Blood something.
The Old Blood, or was it?
No, it's
Yeah,
New
I think
Blood.
that was the expansion, the New Blood, the New Order,
Yeah.
Wolfenstein. There was a way that you could access like a fever dream sequence, and you played through what looked like old school Wolfenstein, and I thought that was just so awesome. And it was optional, it wasn't a required thing, and you could do it more than once. But I love that.
Actually-
and I think in Strafe that had a Wolfenstein
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah.
like a throwback
Yeah.
mini game in it.
Actually, one really good example I have off the top of my head, which became its own game,
Are you gonna say
a
Gwent?
free-to-play game. Yes, I am.
We were going to talk about that later, and that's why I beat you to it because I knew
Okay,
you'd
never
jump
mind. If we're going
ship
to talk about, if we're
and
literally going to
screw
talk
up
about it
the
later,
order of
never mind.
everything. So-
Nope. I'm gonna stop talking now. Okay, continue.
Right.
Actually, no. Red Dead Redemption is a really good example also of like having a
Shitty
bunch of
games?
like, yeah. But the thing is, it's like they are still thought out. Like they have poker games and all that stuff, like full fledged. Like you can play poker in that game if you really want to. I don't know why you'd want to because it's kind of clunky and it takes time, but you can do it. And they also had that like one mini game where it's like you have to use the knife and like get in between the fingers, and you have to like hit the buttons in the right order. And if you screw up, you hurt yourself. But like they're basically like time wasters, just because. But like those mini games have completely different control schemes and what they do and all that stuff. That is completely different and completely optional from the main beat of the game.
So I guess I guess it's kind of like what Wallace and I think Stuart are kind of alluding to. Stuart said that he required minigames are an anti-pattern, requiring that players are introduced to the game is fine, but any part of the main game that requires an investment of time is bad design. And to that point, it's kind of like I kind of agree, and I feel like a lot of like the quote unquote best mini games are games that didn't take away from the main storyline. So like Gwent doesn't. People love the Chow raising in Sonic Adventure 2. I personally hated it, but it wasn't required in any form or way to beat or play the game. But people spent a lot more time in that, and so I feel like those like fall under our criteria of repeatability. A game is paused somewhat while playing it. And there was a third thing that I forgot because I probably should have been writing it down. But I think it's like it's such. I mean, I feel like it's with everything we say. It's kind of like a fine line, whether or not they're good or bad. Because if you have a game like Final Fantasy, where you don't have a chocobo race or any other minigames, then you literally have 50 hours of turn-based strategy and menu navigation, and like that's basically it. Whereas like
And it's good to break that up every now and then.
Right, and so
nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But if they're adding mini games just to purposely break up the game because they're like, oh, we need to add something, then I feel like it shows a lot. And I think mini games can sometimes help with world building if they are done well. And so I think as a large general, just a very broad statement on mini games as a whole, I would say I think overall they can somewhat help a game, but there's a lot of times they don't.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I love the Golden Saucer in Final Fantasy VII is amazing because there is a small portion of it though that is required, and that is honestly pretty annoying. Some of the minigame things that are required for the Golden Saucer section, but I just love that you can spend days there just dicking around, like earning little bits of rewards, or some of them even give you materia, and some are mostly just like some money and other stuff. But you can just do whatever and hang out there in the Golden Saucer and live it up, and it's awesome. But you don't have to. You can just go in, do what you need to do, and get out and be done with it if you don't want to.
And I think that's the expectation of minigames is just like, this is optional. Like if you find it fun, keep going at it. But when it's like required and not fun, it's something that people aggressively hate.
Mm-hmm.
Or what's an example of one that you aggressively hate?
I don't like the like lock picking or those type
Yeah.
of mechanics where like I'm trying to accomplish a goal and every time I do that I have to do this other sort of thing. And you know, whether it's super easy or there's a skill tree that makes it super easy later on, like I don't want to have to gain this whole extra skill set to do this extra thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't like the hacking in BioShock. It was fun the first Pipe Mania, but then towards the end it has nothing to me it has nothing to do with the actual game. And if hacking it to me it totally pulls me out of the BioShock world. I don't know if all computer terminals that were underwater in the 50s involved Pipe Mania, and I really don't think they did. But to me it just pulls me out of the game really fast. And then the fact that like there's really no RNG element to it, it's just like, oh, if you memorize this pattern, you can just repeat this insanely fast. To me, like it doesn't need to be there personally. And another
I
thing,
can see the argument for that. It didn't. I don't, for whatever reason, it doesn't like jar me as much as it does you guys. It doesn't take me out of it so much. I'm not really sure why that is.
and
I mean, I didn't really have much issue with it either.
It was fun and novel the first time, but then after that, I was just like, oh, it's another hacking, and it's like, to me, basically there was. I mean, well, I feel like it's for the first BioShock, there was really no penalty for death at all, like really at all. It would just spawn you to the nearest tube. So to have like a mini game where you need to get somewhere and there's no penalty, like you're not losing lockpicks, you're not losing something else. It's just, oh, you've just lost 15 seconds. Just retry it, and there's no greater issue with failing this particular game. To me, that I don't see why it needed to be there in the first place.
I guess
it
what
didn't
would be
need to be there. Like,
yeah, that's true. I guess something that would be a nice way to implement that maybe is like, okay, you have to do it the first time you come across it, and then the second time you come across the machine, it goes, hey, you can hack it and get like a little bit of a bonus reward from it, or you can just open it and be done with it.
Right, like a brute force that gives nothing but opening, and then there's like an extra experience or money or whatever.
Yeah, like you
hack
get
it
it
with a
health
minigame.
kit, or you
That'd
get
be
a
cool.
little
Question.
pool of money if you go do the mini game. Otherwise, just open it and get whatever you need and be done.
Oh, like risk factions. If you choose to like see the dice actually roll, like that, that's the worst.
Marshall, don't click it.
oh god, I just would like to just repeat that every time we did that, like my audio would freak out, and like it just horrible white noise, just awful. But a real quick question though about the back to BioShock and the Pipe Mania. God, now it just sounds wrong to me. Wasn't there a thing that you can get that you could just straight up like get access to it without any issue? Like you could just skip it? Like was it like a skill or something?
Yeah, there was a way to just skip it. I don't remember if it was this. Yeah, if it was a skill,
if it was an item or something like that. Yeah,
some of the things I think you could just You could just shock them with the electricity plasmid, and it would just like, and it would fry it, and then you could get whatever you wanted out of it.
Yeah.
But there was something that you could do later that was like an instant hack or a buyout kind of thing, where it was like, yeah, just hit the button and it works. But it took a little while to get to, and so that's kind of what Corey's saying is like you had to invest something into that, and for a portion of the game, you didn't have that option. You still just had to do it.
Yeah.
And as much as we complain about it, remember, like this was just to hack item machines and then turrets and all that. You didn't have to do it.
No,
but it made life easier for you. And that's usually the reason why we do it is because, oh yeah, I can deal with these bots every time I go past this camera, or I could just hack the camera, and then when an enemy goes by, they have to deal with it. And I'm like, that's fine.
Right.
Yeah, I get that.
So what do you guys think of like full-fledged mini games that essentially were a separate game? Like I'm thinking of first Call of Duty Zombies, like that mini
which
game
just became its straight up its own thing for the rest of the series. I mean,
and then it even carried over to Sniper Elite.
Oh god, that's true. Yeah, Sniper Elite. That was just like a joke thing that they did that one time, and they're like, actually, a lot of people bought it.
Oh wait, this is good.
Yeah, let's just make it its own spin-off
as opposed to boring as heck.
Yeah.
I appreciate it when developers create a mini game like that where they're like, we have all of this already created. Here's this crazy idea somebody at a board meeting pitched, and we put it in the game. Like Call of Duty, they were just like, oh, this is a great shooter. We have a great engine. What would happen if they were zombies? And it was a horde mode type thing. Like that type of thing I really enjoyed. Like even Call of Duty Black Ops had the one where you could go into the terminal and do the top down shooter version
that
minigame
one
or
was,
whatever it was.
that one was really
yeah.
fun too. I enjoyed that.
That's right. That was Bobby Kodak's like one thing he wanted them to add is like, I love this game that I played back in the day. Can you put it in Call of Duty Black Ops? They're like, yeah, sure, we can do
Yeah,
that.
right.
So that's another thing is as the amount of time they spent adding the zombie feature in subsequent Call of Duties, do you think that took away from actual dev time to make the regular campaign mode better?
I think people specifically bought the game for the zombie aspect.
Yeah,
So, like,
There's straight up people who don't even play multiplayer or don't even play single player. They
Yeah,
play
they
for
just-
zombies.
right.
That it's like in the amount that they have put into zombies now, like that could just be its own game now. No
It's
joke.
called Left 4 Dead.
How old is that game now? Just as a side note, like
Easy there, blurry
don't-
face.
it's
I don't want to know.
Oh, there it goes.
I
All
don't
right.
know how old it is.
yeah, I don't know. My camera's being
I don't-
weird tonight. I'm not
I
too
don't
sure.
like knowing how long things have been released.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes me sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of feels.
Wait.
Yeah,
It's
Halo
cool.
3 was 2000.
Oh, shut up!
It's been a decade, right? Sorry.
What do you guys think of mods? Like, would that be in the minigame aspect? Like, you brought up Left 4 Dead, and I was like, that's not a minigame, but that's a mod. Like, what?
Counter Strike used to be a
Well,
mod.
I would say
And
that
then
it's
it just became one of the most,
I wouldn't
competitive
say-
mods
things in
are
the
a
world.
whole nother thing.
aside
Yeah.
from games that are literally dedicated to mini games like Mario Party and stuff like that. I feel like for a mod to be considered a mini game, it would have to be part of the main story in some way or another, or it'd
Yeah,
have to be.
I agree.
Or what we've been playing, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Yeah, we're
It is a
adding
game
mods.
about
Yeah.
it's a game about figuring out how to solve the little minigame puzzle.
Yeah, every
and
puzzle is
yeah,
a
it's
mini game. I
true.
would say. Interesting.
And the mods are community made little mini games that you add in, and they can show up randomly with the other developer made ones. So like that's something that's a game that's all mini games.
So, is Portal a large game of a bunch of mini games?
Right, and it could be each room could be its own mini game in a sense.
Not really. I'd argue though that it wouldn't be the case because the whole premise of that game is it's a puzzles game using first-person perspective and portals, and each
portals
room
builds
creates
on
its
that.
own different challenge using those parameters. Like for
Yeah.
instance, with Mario Party, like you can't say that Mario Party itself is the one thing as a whole
There's no-
because you
yeah.
have the board game, which is the game itself, which is what you're playing. But then every time the round ends and all that, you play something completely different. And each
Yeah.
game that you play has completely different controls. They last only.
Each room in Portal can be done differently. Like, people solve
still
the
the-
puzzle way differently, and you can redo puzzles.
True, but it's still the mechanics are the same, and so we don't. It's not. Wasn't that something that we described before? Like the mechanics aren't changing
Yeah.
between room to room. It's still the same, like physics and the same jump and use portals and like everything interacts the same. There's a consistency in that kind of mechanic, and the goal is always the same, right? The goal is always
Well,
open
yeah.
the door, get through,
Get out of the room, get to the
And-
next room, get out
Right.
of that room. Get
I
into the
wonder
next
if
room.
it gets a pass because the story is testing you and whether you can get out of a room. So like as on a
Oh, I see what you're saying.
right
Yeah.
on a story perspective, the first half of that game before you escape is Gladys actually testing to see if you can get out of the room using portals. And so I would say that I definitely see where you're coming from, but I think it is the story getting out of those rooms. So I feel like that kind
Right.
of it gets out, it just squeaks out of the minigame territory.
Ever so slightly.
Right.
Yeah. God, Portal is so good.
So good.
That came out in what 2000
So good. And the co-op
or
of
8?
Portal 2. Oh my god. I know what you're trying to do, Marshall. Step it.
Right, yeah.
I'm sorry, you opened up that door to me, and I'm gonna.
I did
make you
not. I did
feel-
not do that. You did
Yes,
that.
you did. Well, in my head canon, you did, and now
So
me.
so I guess it's the same with everything in life. If a mini game is done well, then it's good, whereas if it's done poorly, then it's bad. But I guess criteria we have for mini games and how we view them as whether or not they should be used is if they force you to learn a new mechanic consistently, or if they make it so there's no way to pass an obstacle regardless of whether or not you return to it. So like if you're like you have to learn how to hack because you need to get past this room one time, and you're like, well, I learned how to hack and I never have to do it again. What was the point of that? I don't know. Because I guess, I mean, would you at that point would you say like the detective stuff in Arkham games was a mini game? I mean, really, you just looked around and hit A on things.
They got more evolved as the series
Yes, they
went
did.
on.
They absolutely did.
But
Honestly,
yeah,
it kinda
the
is,
original one
though.
was just
Yeah.
change the filter of your cowl to like a
Yeah.
purple filter, and then follow this. Change it to blue and follow
Right.
this. Then it turned into here's a crime scene. You have to find the clues to then build your crime thing of like the timeline of what was going on and all that stuff. Like then that became a little bit more like intense, which kind of actually became a mini game. Whereas in Arkham Asylum, it was just follow this trail, which really wasn't really a mini game. That's just more like a very nuanced objective marker that you just have to go find.
Just kind of a how to progress the story, like a guiding through the next point.
Yeah.
Now,
It was a little bit of a mini game, and it did break up the action, and the mechanics were completely different. But it doesn't pause the main game, which was something else that we'd said.
That's a
like,
good point.
In those, you're actively progressing the story by doing that. Like it's a break from the main normal like combat and sneak mechanics into doing something different. But it's kind of like a side. It's a side game, not a mini game.
that's real.
But if we're gonna go by the definition where it kind of pauses everything, where you don't have to progress, Resident Evil 4 and their little shooting gallery that you could.
Oh yeah, that was a
castle.
good mini game.
I know in Evil Within 2 they bring that back.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know if it was. I don't remember if it was in Evil Within 1, but they do have it in 2, and they have actually 2 different versions. One where it's just the shooting gallery of like the things that are going across the screen, and then another one which I think is way more entertaining is you have these different colors of squares that you can shoot, and the more that are touching each other, the more points you get. So how you want to do it is you want to shoot one which will drop down a row, which can then like cause them to all connect to each other, and the more you do that, the more points multiplier you get. It's a lot of fun. Like,
Man,
and it's totally a side thing that you don't.
The shooting mini game in RE4 was so good, and collecting the little
bottle
bottle
caps.
cap characters.
Yes.
Oh man, and then they had that in Dead Space also. The first
Oh,
Dead Space
yeah.
had the shooting gallery mini game.
Dead Space also had
asteroid shooting
basketball.
one? Oh,
No,
yeah.
basketball.
Oh, the basketball. I
Remember?
remember
Yeah, the basketball.
That was
Yeah.
fun.
Yep.
So I've got another philosophical question about mini games. Do collectibles and achievements count as mini games?
No,
No.
that's a hard no.
That's all.
Hard no.
Just because like you're going around doing the same, you're doing the main game.
It's a side objective within the game. It's not. Yeah.
Because it's, if you look at it that way, then like any item you can pick up and it goes into your inventories falls into that same category.
That's a good point.
Minigame.
So
Yeah.
collectibles maybe not so much, but you would say the same thing for achievements, like in trophies inside.
No, that's
That-
playthrough
that-
style. Like
Okay.
people do no death runs and things like that. That's just
Yeah.
like your own criteria for that playthrough.
Yeah, it's more like challenge criteria. It's not a mini game.
You're still going through the game. You're just going through it in a slightly different way. And then the
Yeah.
achievement is just there to show, hey, I did it this
I did
way.
this.
Yes, I did
Yes.
this. This is
I
mine.
did it. Yeah, I didn't know
Now,
because if
achievements for mini games, those are awful.
right. So
Oh,
I guess
Yeah.
you've got the reason I even brought that up was because if there's somebody who's on the fence and they're like, well, mini games they just artificially inflate the campaign of some sort, then I would say achievements could fall into that. But if that was your only definition of mini games, I feel like you don't really get what mini games are. But that's
Yeah.
kind of why I even brought that up.
Gotcha.
Let's say, Josh, are loot boxes mini games? Is opening up loot boxes
Oh,
in
man.
Overwatch a
It-
mini game?
It is a no.
Hey,
I
Josh,
think it's
tell me
almost-
how many loot boxes have you opened up recently?
Oh, I mean, I've been playing Overwatch a lot more, so it's like
I know you were playing Overwatch like an hour before we started this.
Yeah, I've
I
been
saw
hopping
you,
on.
and I judged you a little bit.
That's you're still playing For Honor, so
Yep, I know.
Right, we all
Dedicated
have our
service guy.
vices.
well, yeah,
you
it's
know?
Corey's still playing Destiny. He's like,
Right, right. All of us have our own vices. Don't,
Yeah.
don't even
True.
bring that up.
It's true. I still
Um,
play Hearthstone, so
That's okay.
That
So
is
let's
true,
let's get into games that did. I mean, we've kind of already touched on it a little bit, but let's unless they're more philosophical, what is and isn't a mini game. Let's get into some games that did it really well.
Gwent.
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 Gwent comes to mind mostly because
That's like my number one. It's so good. Straight up. Then that was purely, I think, that was Josh. Did you ever play Witcher 3?
Yeah.
Was that through a main quest that you had to go through and you talk to a guy and he's like, "Hey, you know about Gwent?" You go, and that could have just
Right.
been
I think they forced you to play it once.
once.
And that's
And
like
it
the
was
tutorial.
super easy too. I don't remember having much difficulty. And then again, that version of Gwent was like kind of like not balanced at all, but it's like they wanted to actually do something with it. And then, everyone loved Gwent because, it's fun. And that became its own side objective in Witcher 3, and like you can go find people to battle them and then also get cards from them. And that became so popular that, again, Gwent became its own thing that is a free-to-play game that you can just totally play.
For
And
free.
it's for
so
free.
did
Don't
Gwent
play it
start
right
in
now,
Witcher
though.
1,
Don't play it right now,
or
though. It's having trouble.
What's up, Caleb?
Did Gwent start in Witcher 1?
No,
I thought it was in Witcher
It was.
2.
It's in Witcher 2 for
for
sure.
sure. Yeah.
I don't remember it like being the same way, though.
No, they
It's
probably
not the same way.
It's like
no.
No,
chocobos
it's not.
aren't the same in every Final Fantasy game. I feel like it's like one of
Yeah.
those. But no, you're absolutely right. They fleshed it out to the point like where it could be its own game inside of Witcher 3, and they were like, why don't we just
And then made it.
make
Why don't we
it
just
its
do
own-
this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna look this up now because I'm actually really curious to see.
You know, another game that came out that had a really great side card game, mini game within it. Final Fantasy VIII.
Yes. What was it? Terra
Oh
something?
yeah,
That one.
Yeah.
That a lot of people. That was their favorite part about Final Fantasy VIII.
I
Mhm.
freaking loved that card
that was a
game.
big day.
I did not understand it at all when I first started playing that game. And then like I kind of got used to it and got the hang of it, and holy crap did I love playing that card game. And I would specifically like go out of my way to do the monster grinding and other stuff that you needed to be able to get the collectibles for to get other cards to be able to keep playing that game. Like I freaking loved the Final Fantasy VIII card game. So that one that's definitely where Gwent got the idea.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I just wanted to point out there actually was no Gwent in Witcher 2. It was just Witcher 3.
Oh, I thought it was definitely in Witcher
What was
2.
the card game in Witcher 2 then?
I don't even remember there being a card game in Witcher 2.
Yeah, if you went to the taverns, they had a game where
There
you could
was-
just
yeah,
like
you
go
could
up to the
lose-
table and
I
play
lost
it.
a lot of money in that game.
Witcher 2.
I mean,
Let me
in-game
just,
money. Um,
Those Witcher 2 loot boxes really
Yeah,
got
they
you.
really
there was dice poker, fist fighting, and arm wrestling in Witcher 2 for mini games. That was it.
Oh, then it is dice poker.
Yeah,
That's what I was
dice-
thinking.
it was.
Dice
It definitely
Dice
was.
poker.
Yeah,
can
because
go
there was
to
definitely
hell.
something that I didn't have cash for.
Yeah.
So I guess another game a game that I think has great mini games, actually plural, is No More Heroes, the first and second one. But basically 50% of that game is mini games, and then the other 50% is an actual story with Travis Touchdown. But I don't know Marsh had a Wii, but I don't know if you ever played anything other than that one black and white game.
Mad Max.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not Mad
Not
Max.
Madhouse.
Mad World.
Mad World.
Mad World.
Yes.
Mad Max.
Mad
Yes.
Cow. Mad Cow disease.
Mad Gap. We're playing Mad Gap on the Wii.
God, Mad World was so good. Crap.
Right. So it's like, just that whole game was like full of like great. Mowing the lawn and even recharging your saber. That was pretty. The whole game was just enjoyable.
Didn't realize it was Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Animal Crossing also has in for the GameCube.
I mean,
one,
every game is essentially Animal Crossing if you come to think of it that way.
right.
Yeah,
If it has
6
fruit at
degrees
all
of
or
Animal Crossing.
letters.
Hey,
or-
Josh, what year did Animal Crossing come out? I don't remember.
It probably came out going straight off of memory.
That was a rhetorical. It was a rhetorical question. It was just to make Caleb feel old.
I know, but I was wondering if I could guess it.
2003.
Oh, that's a great guess. I'm gonna go with 2004.
Oh, no, hold on, Animal Crossing.
When Price is Right, that junk.
Year of inception. First
2000.
release, Animal Crossing, April 14th, 2001.
No.
Oh,
Off by 2
Wow.
years.
To
Close.
to Price is Right that it would have been 2003 in June.
the year one. It would have been year one if
Or like
Price is Right.
or
Right.
2003 January.
Um,
Not bad.
I would actually. So another game that I wrote down was the Super Smash Brothers and the break the targets and board the
Oh yeah,
platforms.
the like story mode thing.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
But like
I
those,
know what you're talking about.
I super enjoyed those.
Like the original, it was like their original kind of story mode thing. Yeah, I liked that too. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I thought that. I mean, even the sandbag one. I mean, I just really
Yeah, the same back one. Yeah, that was
those.
fun.
I thought those were a great way to have a mini game, and it fits every criteria for a mini game.
How about the destruction of the cars in Street Fighter 2?
That I
And
never
the- or
could
the
destroy
and
a
also
car,
barrels.
so
Or
it
the
made me
jumping
angry.
or breaking of barrels.
Yeah,
I guess that counts as
I guess
that's
it
a
does.
minigame.
Yeah, but I didn't
Yeah.
like those. So I mean, they
They were
didn't
okay.
necessarily
They-
take
they
away
were
from the
time
game. They weren't
wasters.
fun. So I guess that I
They
don't know.
weren't fun. Yeah.
So, what do you guys think of minigame games, like games of just minigames? Because I
Like
feel like they're
WarioWare
making a
Smooth
resurgence,
Captain
Like-
Toad's Treasure
They
Tracker.
are.
Sorry, I just had
Like-
to blurt that out. Was
like Jackbox and like
yeah.
1-2 Switch on the Switch. Like those are minigame games. I feel like they're coming back.
I mean, I've been having so much fun with Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. So yeah, I like it.
yeah, I need to get on that action because
It is
I know of that game, and the first
so
time I
fun.
ever saw that game was someone and like 4 people doing the hardest bomb, where it's like the entire thing is filled with stuff, and they have
Yeah.
like 6 minutes to do it, and they did it with like 0.4 seconds left or something like that. Like it was nuts. It was amazing.
Josh and I solved one with 8 seconds left.
We did.
Nice.
Yeah, we're great at it. About minigames of minigames, I feel like they've always
Minigame
kind of
games.
come and gone. I feel like when Nintendo releases a new console, they always make something to show off what it is. I mean, you had the Wii
mean-
U
Oh, yeah.
World game,
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Wii Sports and
Wii Sports,
Bowling.
1-2 Switch.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
So
actually,
those are like low brow, like easy to do, I guess.
right, and then you've got Mario Party, Raving Rabbids games, which were so funny. WarioWare Smooth Moves. I mean, that came out for the DS and for the Wii. I feel like they've just like been around kind of ish, but I wonder if they're easier to make for an indie dev, because it's just like, all right, I just need to make this one aspect good, and then I'll just link it together by a loading screen or something like that.
For Nintendo's case, it's always
Well-
tried to be more of a party system, I guess, in the more recent years. So, like, it makes sense that they have a lot more of those type of games. And yeah, I guess that is technically easier to do.
I don't know. I'm not a
well,
programmer.
I mean, easier in I don't know, easier in one sense maybe, but also not, because you have to come up with a new set of rules and a whole you have to make, instead of one entertaining thing that you can continue to build on and do for a while, you have to make like 8 or 10 separately entertaining things.
1-2 Switch has like 27 of them, like something
Yeah,
crazy.
there's a
Yeah.
lot.
But it's not that
Yeah.
good. Sadly, there are a couple that are great, and then everything else is not. So it's,
Right. Like you play it with a group of friends and that's the only time you play it.
right, and
Like,
they have to
yeah.
have never played before, basically. Like it
right.
definitely.
Like, the same group is not playing it
No.
twice.
That's very true. It's absolutely true.
That's
Speaking of Nintendo, I do want to bring up Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, simply because
Again,
the reason being is that used to be a mini game within, what was it, New Super Mario Brothers,
Super
or
Mario 3D
which-
World.
yeah,
I know.
which it was like 4 or 5 levels, and they were fun.
Yeah, there are a lot of. Wait, you never played it. You act like you played it.
I what are you talking about?
I've watched enough people
I thought
who
it came out
enjoy
for the Wii U.
I own a Wii U.
Yeah, but how many games
You have a
opened?
Wii U?
Yeah, he never
It's-
opened
it's-
any.
it's-
I literally
it's
stole his
sitting
copy of
really-
Bayonetta, and he didn't know. It was in the plastic, and I
That
left
sounds like
with
Marshall.
it, and never once did he even.
Wait, you stole that?
Like it's exactly what happened.
Hold on, I'm gonna be right back.
Yeah.
I have to look at my pile now. Hold on. Talk
Yeah,
amongst
he-
yourself.
No,
Oh my gosh.
He definitely did.
You should have just taken the whole Wii U and just like GameStopped it for 79 cents.
Yeah.
Josh is a dirty liar. It's right here.
Oh, who did I take it from? Did I buy it? I don't think I bought it. I guess I bought it. All right. Well, yeah, I
You're
guess
a liar and a cheater and a fool. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
So
I definitely took a game from you at one time, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Neither would I.
I mean, it's like my friend back in high school who got my copy of Beautiful Joe for the GameCube and then never returned it,
That was so good.
and then left the school.
I mean, I have like 3 copies of Gears of War 3, and I have no idea how. I only bought one, so who knows?
You know, I think one of them might actually be mine because
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm missing my copy.
I'll mail it to you.
You don't.
So Wallace
It's
brings up
fine.
the professions in like World of Warcraft, and that's what I was thinking in Skyrim too. But those are just like
But
you
like
do
they
the action and
also
build it
branch
up.
off as a skill tree. So I mean, I feel like if
Right.
so I definitely I completely agree. I think the professions in like World of Warcraft are like a mini game. I mean, they've got those in almost every MMO. I mean, Guild Wars, WoW, probably in Knights of the Republic, but I don't play that ever.
Oh yeah, the MMO version of Knights
Yeah,
of the Old Republic.
Isn't just Knights of the Republic?
Yeah,
don't know.
it's been a while since I played it. I only played it for like a month, and then I'm like, nah, I don't like this because it's just a crappy version of WoW. I
That's
think
Marshall's
they have.
motto. Like,
Yeah,
I played this for a month. Don't like it.
don't like it. I'm done with it. Well, it's because for MMOs, you kind of have to get into it to like figure out if it's like worth your time. But I mean, I think there was crafting in that game. I mean, I honestly could be wrong though. It's been so long.
So Wallace brought up another point about, it's like, so what's a mini game for you? Mini games are things that you can do, but they aren't associated with the main game. So party games that are only mini games, is it technically a mini game if everything's a mini game, or is it considered its own thing as like a party game, and that doesn't have the same criteria for mini games because technically there isn't a real world quest that we're trying to complete?
Well, you're trying to get the most
you're trying-
points to win.
You're trying to get the most points or collect the most stars or whatever.
Or be the last one
right.
standing.
I
guess
think
yeah.
there's still mini games. Like it is a party game, and just like the term party game is something that people can use to understand. Okay, this isn't going to be one game that I play with a party. It's going to be, a collection of smaller games that we all play together against each other. So I think those absolutely qualify as mini games.
Yeah. So if we can't think of any more games that did it well, what are some games that did it poorly? And I already said the Chow Garden and Sonic Adventure 2. I hated that. I absolutely hated that. Some people say that was the only reason worth playing Sonic Adventure 2, but I disagre. I think that
If
I
you
didn't
give
play
me a
that.
minute, I might be able to think of one. It's been so long.
if no one else has, what's up?
Proud of my FFA reference.
Oh.
That one took.
I feel like Fable had a ton, and they all sucked.
They were all like rhythm based. Weren't in Fable 2,
Yeah.
weren't they?
Is Fable even really good?
That's not the point at all.
I mean, but if the base
people
game
love Fable
itself
1 and
isn't
2.
very good,
Fable 2 was not
then
good.
the mini games themselves. Fable 2 was not good.
I like Fable too.
I put a lot of hours into Fable 2. I did not like it. I think I 100%ed that game now I think about it.
Just
You have a real bad
angry
habit of
for
doing that.
every single one of those hours.
Yeah.
Oh, this game sucks.
I have to 100%,
was
so I don't have to look at it ever
was actually-
again.
it was
Resident
Fable-
Evil 6.
Fable 2 was really actually it was really good until you basically got God tier and you're like, "Oh, there's no more challenge in this game." And then some people enjoy that part of games, but I personally don't. I
But I mean,
appreciate a continued challenge.
But it's an interesting question though. Like if the base game itself isn't that amazing and you're not really liking it, then chances are the mini games themselves probably aren't going to be good too, if there are any.
So that's actually, this is totally
Well-
different, but I had a friend who enjoyed crafting, but his wife enjoyed killing things. So together, they both loved Skyrim because he would turn on the game and then just have a bunch of items that he could craft and do things with. And then when she would turn it on, she would be like super duper powered up and could go and kill things. So they
Co-op to the next level. I
right,
love it.
exactly.
awesome.
And so
Yeah, that's pretty good.
they had opposite schedules, so they would always be playing when the other wasn't home or something. So it's like
Oh wow.
you can dislike, I guess, the main game of a game. So it's
But like
like
some aspects of it, yeah.
yeah.
Man.
And Stuart put, I mean, that'll be on my epitaph. I put 100 hours into a game. I hated it. That is probably super accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. If Josh hates something, he will 100% it, so he never has to look at it again.
And then games that I love, I never
Like he-
finish.
Such a
Yeah, he never-
weird,
It
weird
doesn't
way to
make
go
any
about it.
sense.
Yeah.
It's we actually, well, I mean, the podcast when we talked about eating habits and how they correlate, it's
That
like
was-
a lot of that is
hilarious.
true. It's like it's really true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another game that has a mini game that I hate was Final Fantasy X's Blitzball.
Oh, fuck that. Yeah, I hated Blitzball.
Isn't there like
That
an
was-
exploit that you can just like
It's just
on-
boring, and it was like weirdly
Yeah.
and it's like, how do you have like an action underwater basketball game, but it's also turn based at the same time? I never quite grasped it. It was very uncomfortable for me to
was-
play. It made me
Yeah,
angry.
I
It made
did
me want
not.
100% the game.
Yeah, I did not like Blitzball. I agree. That was a really bad one. Trying to think of some other ones. The God, man, that one was so bad. That just like brought back so many PTSD memories of having to do Blitzball. Hated that.
That's rough, yeah.
Stuart actually said this a little while ago when he was talking about Mario Odyssey and going from 2D to 3D, and it's totally seamless. I agree that it's super fun, totally seamless, but I don't think that the 2D sections count as mini games. I think that like maybe the jump rope stuff would count more as a mini game. But I mean, I guess they're always in pursuit of the moon pieces, so I guess it's part of the main game at the same time. That's kind of a weird gray area, I guess, for Mario 64 games. Or for Mario 64.
He said Mario Odyssey.
Right, he did say Odyssey, but then it like made me start thinking back to, I mean,
Oh.
because if you're collecting stars the whole time, it falls under the collectibles, which is not a mini game.
But that's it's a collectathon game.
It is a collectible. You're right. So yeah. Okay.
Like the
I think
so yeah.
Yeah, I think
He also mentioned Metal Gear Solid 4 with the sections where you can actually play parts of the game on like the previous game engine.
Oh no, they were flashbacks. They were flashbacks.
Yeah, it was flashback scenes.
Yeah.
And it was actually on like the old game engine and everything. It was really cool.
It was,
I liked those.
I actually have an example, and this is kind of more broad. Challenge rooms in most character action games, because a lot of them, I feel like most of them are either stupidly easy to the point where it's like I'm just wasting time,
so like
or
200 ladder and like Mortal Kombat 9, like you know what I mean?
yeah, kind of like that. In
Like
a way.
the Trial of the Sword and Breath of the Wild? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, more like for instance, since Caleb was playing Darksiders, what were you
He was
playing?
playing Darksiders. And
Yeah. Where it's like those challenge rooms that you can end up going into that usually to increase your health or get
well, and
experience
like in
stuff
Devil
that.
May Cry also has like those like challenge rooms.
Those I like those a little bit more, but then some
those
of them
those
also
don't change the game. Those are the same mechanics though. That's exactly the same. Like you don't
Yeah,
learn
Dark
anything.
Side-
but the thing is, you don't need to go into them. Like that is a side thing that you can just do to like practice something specific, and it's usually like a challenge. So I consider that kind of a mini game in a weird way, but like it's either stupidly easy or stupidly challenging to the point where it's just frustrating.
I guess. I mean the like the Devil May Cry towers, that's like a separate game mode. And I mean that's kind of like we called Call of Duty Zombies a mini game. And the first time it kind of felt like it because it wasn't super fleshed out, but it was a thing. But it is a little more away from mini game because it's like it's its own mode, like it's a thing, and it's like its own little side thing. With the towers in Devil May Cry, like that was a whole different game mode where they're like, here's a survival type mode, see how long you can go, see how good you can get, and there's no reward in the main game, like it has no impact in the main game at all.
But I mean, there are the actual rooms that you can find. Sometimes they're hidden away, where it's like you enter like a specific like arena where it's like you have to kill this type of dude a certain number of times within this time period.
I don't.
You know,
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
That's a
consider that.
challenge. Like
Yeah, I
that would
think
be the
it's a-
same
What do you-
category
I
as
was about to say,
achievement.
is that more of a challenge instead
I
of
would
it being
say,
a
yeah.
mini game? I guess is a challenge
'cause it's
technically a mini
still-
game. I mean, not.
It's still using the core mechanics of the game, and like yes, it does pause you going from, but that's more of like a side quest or a challenge requirement or something like that. Like we've talked about some other examples there, where it's not something that's like you're still playing as whatever character doing
Right.
whatever normal
Still
moves
able
you
to jump and do all the normal stuff you were able to before.
Yeah.
it's not impacting the main story, but that's because it's like a side quest or an optional thing or a way for you to get extra rewards or extra power ups.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Fair enough.
And
All
damn
right,
it, you got me done. I had another example, but
Oh,
then I
I'm
lost
so
it because of
sorry.
that.
Yeah, I gotta-
Forgive me.
My brain is very fickle.
I mean, you are getting old.
it's-
You know, all these old games.
but you know
that we've
what?
been talking about.
It's okay because you're older.
Yes,
Oh,
I
it's
am. Including Corey. Don't forget Corey.
Yep. Yeah, we're in the same age group.
Yeah, we gotta drag ourselves into that. Yep.
That's
Anywho,
all. I so can
I was.
can we
yeah, I
read
was reading
Wallace's because
Wallace's
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Wallace, don't let your wife see this. But Wallace says, a little off topic. Some parts in the relationship to my wife is like a mini game. She says something to me, and in my inner eye, I see something like say yes / agree / smile / sometimes it's a challenge. And
Yeah.
relationships are a mini game.
it's
Yes.
yeah, I totally agree
Mhm.
with that.
Yeah, I love it.
It's
That was a great way to put it, Wallace.
That is good. That is a great way. I can't think of a better way to end personally. Unless
I know.
Yep. That's the
No.
takeaway of this podcast. Relationships are in fact a mini game, folks.
That's right. That's what we've learned. So Caleb, take it away.
Oh yeah, okay. So I don't have any other examples of a really bad one, but I think I've really enjoyed this discussion of us talking about what makes a mini game, kind of digging into the clarification of what's a mini game versus a side quest versus a just side objectives or a challenge mode or achievements. I think it's all very interesting, and I think that as we've shown in some games, it can be completely separate and do really well and actually enhance the gaming experience. And in other cases where it's like a mechanic and you're forced to do it over and over again, it can actually break you the immersion and drag things out and make you hate the game, like Corey. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Wallace, Stuart, anyone that was chatting before I hopped in.
All
Thank
you
for
beautiful
the
lurkers
engagement.
out there.
It's been great. Been a lot of fun. We do this every week, Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And as Stuart says, does wife interaction pause the main game?
A
Yes.
little
Most of the
bit.
time, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it does.
Most of the time,
Absolutely,
yeah.
for sure.
Depends on the
100%.
situation.
And it is 100% where you wish real life you had a keyboard where you could just F5 quick save before that event.
That's right.
God, yeah.
But anyway, we are Random Respawn. I'm Calebite. We got underscore above me, Grand Marshal to my other side, and I'm pointing the wrong way because mirrored and the Joshua
Yeah,
Raptor.
mirrored.
So thanks everyone. We'll see you next week.
Take care.
Bye.
See ya.